My wife had an affair with my stepfather, believing it would secure her the $1 million mansion. What she didn't know is that the mansion is actually mine. I'm in such a terrible situation that I feel utterly humiliated even thinking about it. When I say humiliated, I mean deep, soul-crushing embarrassment. How else can I describe finding out that my wife of 8 years has been cheating on me with my stepfather? Yes, my wife and my late mother's husband. I'm a 39-year-old man, married to Sophia, also 39, for 8 years. Our relationship has been mostly typical, with its fair share of ups and downs. Most of the issues arose because Sophia often said I was too close to my mom. She even called me a mama's boy on several occasions. I'd never tried to argue or defend myself because I loved my mom dearly, and now she's no longer with us. She passed away 2 years ago. I'm thankful I was able to love her and be there for her as much as I could because she deserved all of it. My mom was an incredible woman who raised me on her own and gave me everything she could, often going far beyond her means. She stayed single until about 10 years ago when she met Robert. Robert was in his early 50s and divorced when he and my mom got married. I never quite understood what drew my mom to him after being single for so long. While she was alive, Robert was hardly a presence in my life. It was as if he didn't exist. I used to visit my mom twice a week, but my interactions with Robert never went beyond polite greetings and an occasional smile. For some reason, I just couldn't accept him as a father figure, though I never let that show to my mom. I was genuinely happy she had found someone to share her final years with. After her passing, Robert's presence became irrelevant to me. I didn't stay in touch with him and hadn't even seen him since the funeral. He continued living in my mom's house, but I didn't concern myself with him. That changed when I saw something I couldn't ignore. One day, I noticed Robert sitting with my wife, his arm wrapped around hers. It wasn't a casual or familial gesture. It felt off, too intimate. The way they were interacting and their body language felt wrong to me. I wouldn't describe it as comforting or friendly. It was something else entirely. What made it worse was how out of place this scene felt, given our family dynamics. I'd never been close to Robert, and neither had Sophia. They didn't have the kind of relationship where such physical comfort would make sense. Seeing them like that left me deeply unsettled. That day, I had left the office early to meet up with an old friend, and I happened to pass by a roadside café far from both my home and workplace. I usually never go to that part of town, but there they were, sitting together. Though I went ahead with my plans to meet my friend, I couldn't focus on the conversation. My mind kept replaying what I'd seen, and my friend could tell I was distracted. When he asked if something was wrong, I just blamed it on work stress. How could I even begin to explain what I'd witnessed? When I got home, I couldn't stop myself from confronting Sophia. I told her I had seen her with Robert. Her face went pale, and she seemed completely thrown off. After an awkward silence, she finally stammered out that they had just met for lunch. When I asked her why she was suddenly meeting Robert, she said it was purely by chance. They had bumped into each other and he invited her to have lunch. But the way I was looking at her must have given away that I'd seen something unsettling. She quickly added, "Your stepdad has been really struggling with losing your mom. I was just trying to comfort him. He's lonely and doesn't have anyone to talk to. That's why he held my hands while sharing his grief." What she didn't know was that I hadn't seen him just holding her hands. I saw him wrapping his arms around her. The way they were sitting and interacting wasn't anything like someone mourning or seeking consolation. They weren't laughing, but their body language spoke volumes. It felt more flirtatious than somber. Her explanation didn't sit right with me, but I chose not to argue. Instead, I decided to look into it on my own before confronting her again. Sophia works as a nail artist at a beauty salon, which means her schedule is different from mine. She's usually busy on weekends, and has her days off during the week. This arrangement has never been an issue for us before, but recently, her time at work seemed to take up more and more of her focus, leaving me uneasy. Lately, we'd been having frequent arguments about her not giving enough time to our relationship. She accused me of being overly needy since my mom's passing. She even said that when I used to visit my mom twice a week, Sophia's absence didn't bother me as much. But she was wrong. Back then, I would visit my mom on weekends when Sophia was working, and I always made sure to be home on time to spend the rest of the day with her. In the past, she would complain that I was a mama's boy, and now she was accusing me of being clingy. The situation was frustrating and unfair, and seeing her with my stepdad only made things worse. My anger and suspicion continued to build. A few weeks later, Thanksgiving rolled around. Yes, I mean this past Thanksgiving. To my surprise, Sophia insisted that we invite Robert to celebrate with us. I was taken aback when she directly suggested inviting Robert. She explained that he was living alone and had no one to spend the holiday with, so we should invite him as family. I reminded her that she never extended the same invitation when my mom was alive, but she brushed that off, saying they had each other to celebrate with back then. Now, Robert was alone, and she felt sorry for him. In the end, I reluctantly agreed, but I had my own reasons. I wanted to observe how they would behave in front of me. I won't say they acted normal, because now I know the truth, but they didn't do anything overtly suspicious. If I hadn't already seen the signs, I might have overlooked their behavior. I stayed mostly quiet during the dinner. I'd never liked Robert, and my growing suspicions only made me resent his presence even more. It seemed like he sensed my discomfort, and the whole evening felt off. The dinner was awkward with the three of us eating in silence. Sophia tried to break the tension with random topics, but the conversation felt forced, and we exchanged only fake smiles. It was becoming increasingly difficult for me to live with this heavy weight on my chest, so I decided to come up with a plan. I thought about checking her phone, but I quickly realized that wouldn't work since it was locked. I didn't want to ask for the password because it would make her suspicious, so I decided on another approach. I told Sophia that I had to go out of town for work for a couple of days, and the day I was supposed to leave, I got up early and went to my office as usual, but before I left, I secretly planted a GPS tracker in Sophia's car and started tracking it remotely. By early afternoon, I saw that she was driving to Robert's house. I wanted to catch her in the act, but I worried that if I just showed up, they might be sitting there, talking innocently, and it would make me look foolish. So I called up my friend Mark, explained the whole situation, and asked if he could go visit Robert. It seemed like a much safer plan. I told Mark to record everything if he found them doing something suspicious. The house was locked with a password, and I just hoped that Robert hadn't changed the PIN. Mark was concerned that Robert might notice him trying to sneak in, so I told him to just say the front door had been left open and that he was checking on him. The main door opened into a small passage that led to the living room, so there would be no way for anyone to suspect him of unlocking it. After some convincing, Mark agreed. He went inside but didn't find them in the hallway. He then cautiously peeked into the bedroom, keeping his phone camera on and tucked in his shirt pockets so they wouldn't notice. When he looked inside, he saw the two of them, completely naked, cuddling together. He quickly apologized under his breath, left the house without them noticing, and rushed out before they realized what had happened. Robert followed Mark outside, asking what he was doing there. Mark explained that he had just come to check on him, but assured him it was fine and that he would come back later. He quickly got into his car and drove off before anything more happened with Robert or Sophia. But let me tell you, my friend can be pretty foolish. Instead of turning on the back camera, he had the front camera on the entire time, so nothing was recorded except Robert and Sophia yelling at Mark for showing up unannounced. Still, I got the confirmation I needed. I had already packed a couple of sets of clothes and my toiletries before I left the house that morning, so I went straight to Mark's place. His wife was away visiting her parents, so he insisted I stay with him until everything got sorted. Sophia knew that Mark would have told me the truth. She messaged me asking when I'd be coming home, but I didn't respond. I basically ghosted her. She's been blowing up my phone with endless texts and calls, thinking I'm out of town for work. This all happened 4 days ago. Since then, I contacted a lawyer online. I have no intention of seeing her face again. I'm planning to serve her with divorce papers and get her evicted from my house. Update 1. It took 10 days for the lawyer to send the divorce papers. Sophia wasn't ready to sign and wanted to discuss things. My lawyer suggested we try to settle things out of court, as it would save both time and money. I work in sales, have a regular job, and have a fixed budget for legal fees, plus limited time off for court, so I agreed to meet with her in the presence of my lawyer. But when I arrived for the meeting, she insisted on having a private conversation with me. I resisted, but my lawyer encouraged me to go along with it, as long as I didn't say or commit to anything she asked. He set some clear boundaries for the meeting: no touching, no hugging, and no confessions. I felt disgusted just being in her presence. She tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding. After reading so many stories about cheating on Reddit, I knew exactly what cheaters say. I just responded, "Yeah, sure, you were just trying to help a lonely old man, right?" She admitted that what Mark saw was true, but insisted it was just cuddling and nothing more. Cuddling without clothes, of course. But what she said next left me speechless. She told me that she did it to safeguard our future. I asked, "Really? How?" She explained that my mom had left all her wealth to Robert, and if he married someone else, that woman would have a claim to it. Essentially, she was worried that someone else would inherit the family property. I told her, "So you slept with my stepdad to become my stepmother and take my mother's wealth?" The complexity of these family dynamics was overwhelming. I was feeling dizzy from her nonsense, so I stormed out of the meeting room. When I returned, my lawyer asked for the details of our conversation, and I told him everything. He burst out laughing for a moment, but then became more interested in the inheritance my mother had left behind. My mom had inherited a mansion from her uncle, a huge property far beyond my financial means. Interestingly, Sophia had always been eyeing that mansion. After we got married, she even suggested we move into it. I was happy that Sophia wanted to live near my mother, but no. Sophia wanted my mom to move into my apartment, and we take the mansion. I refused. It was my mom's house, and I didn't think she should have to leave. Sophia argued that since I was my mom's only child, the house would eventually come to me, so why not move in there now? This led to frequent fights between us. One day I lied to her, saying that Mom had willed the house to Robert. Little did Sophia know, after Mom's passing, that I hadn't transferred the house into my name yet. I wanted Robert to stay in the mansion until he decided what to do with it. If I transferred the ownership into my name, it would mean he'd be living on my property, and I was sure he wouldn't like that. The transfer process was also expensive, and I was low on funds at the time, so I decided to leave things as they were. I'm glad I didn't transfer the ownership, though, because if I had, Sophia would have been entitled to half of the property during our divorce. Maybe she wouldn't have been with Robert in that case, but I can't trust a cheater, no matter the situation. Yes, my mom had willed the mansion to me, but Sophia didn't know that. She tried to make me reconsider the divorce, telling me that she'd soon convince Robert to give her the house as a gift. If I didn't divorce her, the mansion would be ours. I laughed at her proposal and told her, "No thanks for the offer, good luck with the mansion." She smirked and said, "You're losing a lot by going through with this divorce." I smiled and told her I didn't care. I couldn't tell if she was really that clueless or if she was just pretending to save face, but honestly, I didn't care anymore. Sophia knew that I had no significant wealth, aside from the savings in our joint account, which had already been divided between us. I felt a sense of relief once the divorce was finalized. If Sophia had known the truth about the mansion's ownership, she would have never agreed to the divorce. I wasn't about to share my mother's inheritance with someone like her. Sophia dug her own grave when she confessed the real reason she had been with Robert. I was planning to use that to push Robert out of her life. I saw Robert picking her up from the court, helping her with all the legal stuff during our divorce. I was just waiting for the final papers to be signed so I could shatter her world. Now that it's done, the next step is to destroy Sophia's life. Update 2. After my divorce was finalized, I sent Robert the details of Sophia's confession. He responded, "You know your mom willed the mansion to you, right?" I told him, "Yeah, I have her will, but Sophia doesn't know about it. She's going to ask you to give her the mansion." I wasn't trying to do him any favors by revealing the truth. I just wanted to burst Sophia's bubble. The poor girl had been dreaming of owning my mom's mansion. Robert told me that recently Sophia had been asking him, indirectly, about his will and who would inherit his wealth, but he never understood her intentions, because he didn't have anything to his name. I wasn't about to form any bro code with Robert, so I ended the conversation there. A little while later, Sophia called me. Normally, I would have ignored her, but this time I picked up, knowing what it was about. She was yelling from the other end. "Why didn't you tell me your mother willed the house to you? I've been trying so hard to please that old man just to safeguard your property, and you..." I just laughed at her insults because I could tell they were coming from a place of hurt. I said, "Thanks so much, and good luck with your game," then hung up and blocked her number. A few days later, Sophia called me again from an unknown number, likely from a friend or colleague. She told me that Robert had broken up with her. Somehow, he found out that she had been with him only for the inheritance, and once the truth came out, he dumped her. He called her a greedy person, and she started abusing him, claiming that she was only trying to help him cope with his loneliness. I couldn't understand why she was still trying to portray herself as a saint when her true intentions were already exposed. I sarcastically responded, "Yes, of course. You've been selflessly helping everyone for their own good, with no ulterior motives." She then insisted that she had been with Robert for my sake, to secure the mansion for me. Now she was saying she was just trying to help him deal with his loss and loneliness. Wow, such a pure soul she was. But she didn't stop there. She tried every possible way to get in touch with me, sometimes trying to manipulate me with guilt, pleading for us to get back together. She showed up at my house, my office, and even at public places I frequented. It was insane. She even showed up at my gym and tried to corner me into talking to her. It felt like a nightmare, but I ignored her as if she was a complete stranger to me. Technically, she was a stranger since our divorce was finalized. Update 3. I thought this chapter was finally over, but my past resurfaced the moment I changed the ownership of the mansion into my name. God only knows what her obsession was with that house. It's understandable. Who wouldn't want $1 million mansion to their name? But I wasn't sure how long it would take for Sophia to accept the reality. 6 months after my divorce, I finally decided to transfer the mansion to my name. As I mentioned earlier, I hadn't done it sooner because I didn't have enough savings to cover the ownership transfer. But now that I was divorced, my expenses had gone down significantly, and I was able to save up for the transfer cost in about 4 to 5 months. Before applying for the transfer, I informed Robert about it. He wasn't living in the house anymore after I found out about his affair with Sophia, but I didn't force him to move out. He told me he would take his remaining belongings, which he did. he also made me the administrator of the house's security system. It took a couple of months for the paperwork to go through, and during that time, I had the house repainted. The lawn and pool had also been neglected for a while, so I made sure those were cleaned and properly maintained. I had been in no contact with Sophia, and based on our last conversation, I knew she and Robert had broken up. So I was genuinely confused when she showed up at the mansion during one of the cleaning days. I wasn't there at the time, but the cleaning manager called to inform me that a woman had entered the house and was wandering around. They tried to stop her, but she claimed to be my wife. They found her behavior strange, as she was touching the walls and inspecting the interiors. It made them suspect that she was a trespasser, which she was. I told them to remove her and made it clear I had no wife. They followed my instructions and called me to confirm that she was out of the house. Not surprisingly, she later showed up at my home. She was crying, claiming I had abandoned her when she had done no wrong and that her intentions were pure. I told her to seek therapy and suggested she consider getting help at a mental health facility instead of coming to my house. She asked me to let her in so we could talk, but I refused and closed the door on her. To further protect myself, I took out a restraining order against Sophia concerning the mansion property. While the chances of her sneaking in or causing damage were low since she hadn't been violent, I still didn't trust her. It was necessary to take this step to safeguard the new tenants' interests and my property.